on a winter evening in 2006 in London, where a group of friends, having just come back from a Christmas benefit for Palestine, are talking about what more that they can do, and are talking about the responsibility of the individual in trying to influence world events. Big words. But we were all concerned with the issue of Palestine-Israel, and we all wanted to be more involved in it than we were. And eventually we came up with the idea of running a literary festival in Palestine. Let me go back a little bit and start the story again at an earlier point, and this is in late 2000 when I went to Palestine for the first time, just after the breakout of the second Intifada, when The Guardian sent me there to report on what life was like on the ground. And I came back and I delivered 10,000 words, which they hadn't asked for, but which they actually printed. And I had been tremendously struck by a number of things, but two of them are important in this context. One was that people were extremely keen on living a full life, including a cultural life. They were keen on education, they were keen on reading, on writing, on art. And when I was there as a journalist, but when they knew I was there, they insisted that I do readings, and they traveled across checkpoints to come and listen to me, and I felt very humbled. And I felt very much that two things. One was that I wished that when they actually came to the literary event, they had more than me to listen to, because of the great effort they had made. And the other was that I wished there was more of me there, that more people were there to actually see what was happening on the ground in Jerusalem, in Nablus, in Ramallah, and learn about the truth of it for themselves. So when we came up with the idea of the Palestine Festival of Literature, the motivation, if you like, or the effect that we hoped to get was twofold. One was to take cultural movers and shakers from the West to Palestine so that they would live the life for themselves for a few days and see what it was like. And the other was to actually help the Palestinians in keeping alive their cultural life under the circumstances that they were living under, which was really basically the circumstances of being under military occupation by the Israelis. Again, just a note of explanation to take the story yet back again, more flashbacks to about a decade earlier, when I had found myself the mother of two sons by a British husband and living in the UK. So even though I was Egyptian, I was living in the UK, I was a mother of two half English, half Egyptian sons, and I was working in English. And living at that crossroads, both geographically and culturally and professionally, I became really concerned with issues of representation. I became convinced that the Palestine-Israel issue was the key issue and the symbol and the source of all the poison in the relationship between my world in the south and my world in the north. And I became very concerned with how that issue, as well as other issues, were represented in the Western media. It seemed to me that every time I read a story in the British press, or the American press even more, about the part of the world that I knew most about, and the part of the world that I cared deeply about, it was a misrepresentation. And the issue for me was, what does one do about that? And since I was a writer, that became, in 2000, the last time I published a novel, because I became hijacked into cultural activism and writing totally, constantly, all the time, trying to address these issues of representation. So back to 2006, and we thought, okay, well, here we are. We're all people to do with cultural and literary life in England, and also, in my case, in the Arab world. We can use that to actually take people over and have them do cultural and literary events and live like Palestinians for a week and see what happens. It took about 2 years for us to be able to actually do something about that dream, to use a word here. My sons became very, very involved and helped me to hone and articulate the idea. A friend who was a banker set me up with a meeting with 6 of his friends. He was an Egyptian expatriate, and I had a meeting with 6 of his expatriate young Arab friends, Palestine, Morocco, Jordan, and so on. And basically, it was just the most amazing thing because he pledged 10,000 sterling and asked them to match him, and they matched him. And I walked out of there with 70,000 pounds and the budget for the first Palestine Festival of Literature. The other problem that we had, of course, was persuading people that we were not terrorists and persuading them that we were not taking them out to Palestine to get them killed or to get them kidnapped and held to huge ransom. But we actually managed to do it, and in May 2008, a group of some 26 of us crossed the King Hussein Bridge and went into Jerusalem. It took us 6 hours to make the 20-meter crossing across the border through the Israeli border guards, who made sure that we had a very difficult time of it, but we got across and we went to Jerusalem, and the Palestine Festival of Literature was born. We have now held the Palestine Festival of Literature, PalFest, for 5 times, 4 times in occupied Palestine and the last time in Gaza. And we're now looking for ways of continuing the engagement on both fronts at the same time. In these 5 years, PalFest has developed a character, it's developed a community, and it's developed a great many friends. We, of course, like to believe that that part of our character, if we describe our character, one thing is that we are committed to excellence, whether excellence in the people that we take out. It's not, oh, okay. Okay. The Palestine Festival of Literature, that is our logo. And as I said, we are committed to excellence. This is a musician, a Palestinian musician who worked with us once. This is an event in an old bathhouse in Nablus. This is an event also in Nablus in an old restored palace. We have really high production values. The people that we take with us are people at the height of their career. They've either got a huge fan base and audiences, or their books have been made into films, or they write regularly for the very, very well-established English and American papers. And also, what's important about them is that they're not people who are known to be advocates of Arab causes. In other words, we hope that when they come and learn the truth for themselves, and when they feel moved to talk about it afterwards, they will not only have the weight of their careers and their personalities behind them, but they will have also the element of surprise, that people will be surprised that X, Y, or Z is actually advocating justice for Palestinians. These are, since we're TED design, so I thought I would show you some of the designs of our posters. This is a brilliant young designer who's a British Muslim northern lad, originally from India actually, who's doing our work. Okay, and so now PalFest itself, what do we do? For those of you who've not seen this map before, the map on the left is Palestinian, Arab and Jewish land in Palestine in 1946. The green, the dark, is Arab land, and the white was Jewish land. That was the normal state of things in 1946. 1947, with the partition, as you know, of course, Palestine was partitioned around the same time, of course, that this country was partitioned. And here you have the Arab land has shrunk, and the Israeli land has grown much bigger, and also the issue of contiguity. So the Arab land is 3 separate blocks, just about their tips touching. There we go in 1967 with the Arab land smaller and further away from each other. And then in 2000, where Palestine is actually just a little flotilla of little green islands in a white sea. And of course, things are worse now. And even within that very tiny space, the land is dissected by Israeli roads and Israeli checkpoints, because on almost every hilltop there is a settlement, an illegal settlement built on occupied land. And so to connect those settlements, and here's a settlement, to connect them the Israelis have built great big highways, which are Israeli-only roads. In fact, they're settler-only roads, settler and army, because normal Israeli citizens are not allowed to go there by the Israelis in case they meet Palestinians and become friends with them and find out what's really going on. One point about PalFest is that it lives and travels like a Palestinian. In other words, PalFest will never avail itself of the super-fast Israeli-only roads. It will go on the Palestinian roads. This is a Palestinian village, and the roads that connect the villages, that is what they look like. These are the roads that PalFest travels on with its authors and to its audiences. And that's the second important characteristic about PalFest, which is that it is a traveling festival. Because our audiences would have great difficulty coming to us through the checkpoints, what we do is we go to them. And so here actually you have the famous wall with a watchtower, and there's the watchtower, and this is what PalFest goes through. Here are some of our authors starting to go through a checkpoint. Here they are, our board. This is Pankaj Mishra, your very own Pankaj Mishra, who came with us the first year. But once we're through, then we are in a Palestinian city. A typical day will start with seminars, lectures, workshops in a Palestinian university. Or a theater, or the cultural center in a refugee camp, where we work with the young people. PalFest goes in a spirit of reciprocity and exchange. We go to learn and to experience art and music and culture and opinions there, as well as taking our own to them from the outside. And born of it have been several projects. There is, for example, a theatrical company from London that is doing a performance this summer with a company from Nablus. There are various authors who've gone back on their own steam to do creative writing courses and so on. Once the morning work is over, then we do tourism. And of course, tourism in Palestine is very special. Every city has its own characteristics. In Bethlehem, you can see the wall, and you can see the amazing graffiti that goes up on this wall. But you can also, more traditionally, see the Church of the Nativity. You can see a procession. You can see a Bethlehem wedding. In Al-Khalil Hebron, you can see soldiers living on top of Palestinian houses, and you can see the effect of that on the markets in having them basically closed down. In strangling, there we are. Al-Khalil Hebron, once the hub of commerce in the Middle East, closed down. Rubbish that the settlers throw onto the Palestinian residents, and a shopkeeper who was the only shopkeeper who had managed to stay and keep his shop open. Another charming thing, people having to climb through their back windows into their houses because they're no longer allowed to go on the main road in front of the house, because that is commandeered by soldiers for the settlers who are Americans coming to do a 2-year stint as a settler in Al-Khalil Hebron and jogging there, as you see, with their guns. We film everything, we document everything. We're very proud to be at the cutting edge of technology. You might not think so with my slides, but the young people who do the technology for PalFest are amazing. And in the evening, we always have a cultural event. Again, a shared cultural event with the visitors and the local artists and local people with, you can see, their audiences and dance. Now, of course, we run into trouble sometimes because we are not popular with the Israeli state. So here was one event where they actually came and shut us down. You can see the army there with the guns deciding that they were going to shut us down. And this was because it was in Palestine, in the National Theatre of Palestine. And in the end, after they had thrown us out, they put up a notice which you can't actually read what it says, but it says in broken Arabic and broken English that this event is closed down because it is to do with Palestinian artistic creativity, which is not allowed in Jerusalem. So there was that. Here, this is Silwan. This was our last event, our closing event there, and we had to actually go through tear gas to get to the tent where we were going to perform and read our poetry. However, PalFest's motto is the words of the late great Palestinian thinker, Edward Said, who said, who talked about confronting the power of, confronting the culture of power with the power of culture. We continue to believe in that, we continue to act by it, we continue to try to do our bit in changing perceptions in the world about the Palestine-Israel issue. We believe in the word, we believe in music, we believe in dance, and we believe in the image, and we believe that finally there will be justice and there will be peace for everybody. And thank you for listening.